everyone, and welcome to a Modern Sales Pros event. I'm super excited to dive right into this hot topic, the informative impact of AI on sales. But before we begin, we'll let folks trickle in and we'll give them a couple more minutes. So I'd love to ask the panel that I have today a fun little icebreaker question. I always like to know, what is your go-to kind of lunch these days? I know we're kind of heading into the summer months, so maybe your lunch order or your meal prepping has changed, but I'm always looking for inspiration and ideas. So how about Jonathan? You can kick us off with your go-to lunch order these days.
Oh, my go-to lunch order is not very sexy. So I eat every day. I'm a creature of habit. I eat a can of tuna fish, and then I
Oh,
eat a chicken breast. And then
Wow.
nice, healthy.
yes, I'm healthy in the morning. So breakfast and lunch is very clean. Dinner, it's hit or miss.
Nice. You know what? I actually heard that having protein in the morning, you get a lot of energy throughout the day and you don't get that carb crash midday that I usually get because my go-to order is sushi. But thanks for sharing, Jonathan.
If I
That
eat
sounds
carbs,
very healthy.
if I eat carbs for breakfast, I'm starving by like 9:30 in the morning. So
Oh, yeah. Sarika, how about you?
So, I've been trying intermittent fasting. And so by lunch, which is actually working really great for me, it's really amazing because I never like eating breakfast anyways. And so by the time I'm super hungry, so I eat whatever I can get a hold of, literally. So I don't really have a go-to order, I suppose, right?
Nice. Yeah, I heard there's great benefits for intermittent fasting. That's awesome. And Dustin, what about you?
Nothing exciting either. My team always makes fun of me because I just bring in chicken or beef with rice and broccoli. Like, just healthy. Just I need something just to fuel myself during the day. A lot of times, I'm sure you guys all can contest. We're in meetings back to back, so I just have prep food basically for lunch.
Well, amazing. Now that we have more folks trickled in, thank you for answering that little fun icebreaker. Now we can get started. This topic today, we're starting with the informative impact of AI on sales, exploring the latest advancements and best practices for success. But before we begin, I'm going to say a few words about the team at Modern Sales Pros. Hello, everyone. My name is Angelica. I'm one of the community event managers at MSP. And for those of you who are not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and revenue operations, and enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. Our mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they struggle to solve on their own and help them to see around corners they may not know about. We do this through live sessions like the one you're at today, an online robust forum, our quarterly summits, and we're starting to get back into in-person events. If you're not already part of MSP, you'll be invited to join right after this event. And speaking of our summit, if you like this content, we're back next month with our virtual MSP summit. Join us for Camp Modern Sales Pros, July 18th to the 19th. We have over 15 plus events, 3,000 Modern Sales Pros in attendance, 35K high caliber speakers. You'll hear from leaders at Sales Loft, Outreach, Gainsight, Stage 2 Capital, and so much more. I'll drop the registration link in the chat to register. It's going to be a great event. And quick housekeeping notes, this event is being recorded. So if you have a colleague or friend that couldn't make it, rest assured that this recording will be made available on the previous event page before the end of the day. And then if you have a question for our awesome panelists today, please use the Q&A function at the top right-hand corner or leverage the chat. I also love to know where our community is calling in from. So if you want to drop in where you're calling in from, that'll be a really fun way to start interacting and engaging with the community. And this event wouldn't have been made possible without our awesome sponsor today, Cashflow. Cashflow is a deal closing platform that automates quote to close with dynamic quotes, complex usage-based pricing, and interactive self-serve checkout. Close deals up to 4 times faster, make meaningful projections and customer insights, and boost ARR with flexible payments, options, and built-in financing. You can learn more about Cashflow here. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Be sure to check them out. They're doing awesome things. Now on to our awesome panelists. I'm super excited to introduce Sarika, who will be moderating today's session. I'll pass it off to her to kick off the content, and then I'll be back for closing remarks. So take it away.
Hey, Jonathan. Hey, Angelica, I am having trouble seeing everybody's videos. Do you know why?
Yes, someone has pressed the
There you go.
buttons. Speakers
Okay.
can not touch anything. That'd be awesome. Thank you. All right,
Okay.
there we go. It's fixed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Angelica. Hi, everybody. So great to have you join us. We have a wonderful panel with us today with Dustin Crawford, who's head of sales from Otter. We have Jonathan Hill, who is head of sales at RevSure, and May Habib, who's my dear friend and co-founder and CEO of Ryder. She's stuck on a plane, so she couldn't make it, but I'm sure we'll have another time to do another session with her in the future. But I'm super excited to welcome my wonderful panelists over here. Maybe to start off with, my name is Sarika Garg. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cashflow. And Angelica just talked about Cashflow, so I won't bore you with the details, but very quickly, we are a deal closing app that makes the manual processes of closing much more automated. So you can do things like close faster, expand and renew your revenue with your customers in a better way. And we really built on the thought that buyers of software expect expect the buying process to be much more simpler than ever before. So we make it really simple, smooth. Checkout experiences, remove friction, so you can actually close your deals faster. So let's actually get started. So we'll do quick intros to start with and then jump into the topic. So I'll actually hand over to Jonathan. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about yourself, your role, and what your company does, and then we'll go to Dustin.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm Jonathan Hill. I'm the head of sales and customer success at RevSure AI. RevSure was founded about a year and a half ago, and we launched product at SaaStr, so fall of last year. And RevSure is helping companies with pipeline acceleration. So essentially, when you think about generating pipeline, right, there's typically sales, there's marketing, there's business development, there are partnerships, and they're on all these different systems, right? And sometimes the collaboration between, the four teams could use some improvement. And really what RevSure does is we go ahead and integrate with all those different disparate systems, and then we harmonize their data through a proprietary data model that RevSure has, and then we apply AI to the data set, right? And it can tell a company things like how much pipeline are they going to generate? Perhaps what channels and campaigns have the highest propensity to convert to revenue and bookings? What leads have the highest propensity to convert to opportunities? So we are an AI company, and I'm very excited to be here today. Thanks everyone for your time and for having me.
All right, awesome. Dustin?
Yeah, I could just jump right into it. Yeah, my name is Dustin Crawford, and I'm the head of sales over at Otter.ai. We're actually a conversation intelligence platform. How we're different is that we have the highest level accuracy when it comes to transcription. So thanks to an early partnership with Zoom, that feeding our AI, we had over 10 billion meetings that were transcribed. So as we all know, you need a lot of data to feed AI. And so people start to trust us for taking notes. And so we actually just rolled out Otter Sales Assistant. Sales reps can basically just move faster by relying on Otter to provide a call summary or action items, next steps after their call, so they can really stay focused and supercharge them. You can even get an email based off of that call that you just had. So really making the reps more efficient. And then for sales leaders, this is something that I personally love, is that you no longer need to rely on manually entered CRM data to audit a deal. You can basically just use the conversational data to fill in like your sales process data. Like for me, we use MedPick, or you can use BAN to see and uncover like what's missing from a deal, or if that deal will close based off of some of the conversational information that they've gathered. So that's kind of like what we've been doing, and super excited to be here.
Yeah. Welcome, Dustin and Jonathan. So let's talk about the topic of AI, right? So AI was all the rage, what, 5, 6 years ago, and then not much came out of it, right? Like I think it was just the dot AI that sort of stayed with everybody. But of course, the world was taken by storm. I don't know, I guess 6 months ago, with generative AI coming into play, ChatGPT, Bard, but really large language models, and they've really triggered a new wave of innovation. And this time, it definitely feels like it's real. We all feel it. We all are sort of believers in it, but in some way, it's really a technology that's looking for a problem to solve, right? And when that happens, it becomes really, really super important to go back to what is the jobs to be done, and how can we make sure we solve real problems, right? Because it's very easy to imagine problems but not really solve real problems. So I actually wanted to start off with actually a study that I just saw this morning, which is from Outreach, right? So Outreach does a survey every quarter, I believe, or every 6 months on 500 B2B sales leaders. And they did, in this survey, they actually asked, are you using generative AI in your day to day? And they actually found 62% of these sales leaders are already using generative AI in their everyday. And the uses that they're seeing is 60% are using it to enhance customer interactions, right? 56% are using it to update CRM data, which, as we all know, is super painful, and 46% to respond to ask for proposals from a customer, right? So the customer is asking something and they're sort of responding. So as we all navigate through this hype and excitement that's there, what I hope we can do in the next 40 minutes that we're here is really try to bring some clarity of what are some concrete things that we are seeing in the market, we are ourselves applying in our own jobs and in our own companies, right? So I think that maybe the question is, how is generative AI or ChatGPT featuring in your thinking around AI for sales automation? Maybe I can get you started of how we are at Cashflow thinking about it, and would love to sort of hear what you guys are thinking. So for us, we're always involved in the last mile of the deal close, and you would actually say, yeah, it's not really the top part of the funnel. So what is it that generative AI can do for you? And in our sort of conceptual way of thinking about it is all of deals, or majority of the deals, close in the last 10 days of a quarter, right? Like we all experience that. That's just the truth. And that means that the great salespeople feel a crunch of time at the end of the quarter, and they have only so much time to respond, to get the business case over, to get all the stakeholders on board. And we are thinking a lot about how can we actually save them that time, because that 1 minute is really equal to 1 hour. Like 1 minute saving can really, like, and if they can actually close one more deal because they got all the stakeholders across with better business case articulation, or better emails, or better actually responses to customers, then we are actually doing our job in a better way, or helping our customers do their jobs, right? So that's maybe our way of thinking about it. Would love to hear from you. Who wants to go first, Dustin or Jonathan?
I can go first. So kind of how we think about AI at RevSure, right? We're more on the predictive side than the generative side. So what we're trying to do is help companies generate more pipeline and a higher quality pipeline. What does that look like? So we can do things like tell you what your pipeline health is, right? Your pipeline health can be looked at from an angle of, well, what are we doing at the top of the funnel? And you can break down based on the pipeline that you're generating to a very granular level, like all these different aspects about your pipeline. And that could change the input at the top of the funnel when it comes to marketing, right? So that's an example of how we're using AI in our platform, or let's take a look at like lead-based, account-based prioritizations. We'll tell you what leads have the highest propensity to convert to revenue. We'll do the same thing at an opportunity level and aggregate that in account level. What does that allow you to do? It allows you to be smarter. It allows you to do your job more efficiently as a sales leader, right? As an AE. Some of the stuff that we've played around with specific to our GTM motion, we've looked at tools that have helped with generating sequences around business development outreach. There's a few of them out there that are particularly interesting that I think have a lot of promise. You think about the amount of time that goes into writing cadences. It's pretty significant. Like these BDRs spend a good portion of their day. Like if you're not at a company where they hand you like the marketing approved BDR sequence, right, and you actually have to do it on your own, requires a lot of energy, a lot of work. So I think when you find a way to automate that and the output is authentic, right, and it's as good as what a BDR would write on their own, that's a huge time saver. So I have a lot of optimism around that specific work stream as it relates to biz dev.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super amazing. Yeah, Dustin?
How I kind of think about this is I really want to take all the manual work off of a sales rep, just point blank. I don't want them to be doing anything manual ever again. And so I'm trying to find tools and that's why I keep pushing our company to try to build certain functions and features because of conversational intelligence. So I've used other platforms in the past, and that's why I was excited to join Otter, because if you can use the conversational information and automatically do things for sales reps, you don't have to worry about the manual entry, because we talked about you earlier on. I'm talking about how hard it is to get sales reps to manually enter things into Salesforce. Like, why are we still doing that? Why, with AI, you're able to solve this? And for me, I'm looking for the same exact thing for outreach or for inbound. We're very lucky we get a lot of inbound. And so how do you actually automate this with AI? Or how do we go to an outbound motion using AI functions and features? Because especially for Google's tightening things a lot more. So if you're using a tool that's able to send out 500 emails, well, your Gmail, if you're using Gmail, is going to get shut off real quick. And so how do you actually use AI to get smarter and smarter for you to be able to be more effective and efficient with your reps' time? So that's kind of like how we're looking at it. We're looking at tools that will solve for some of these manual things that still it's legacy for reps to do. Because I want them, do more with less. Like that's for the world that we're in, and AI can solve for that.
Yeah, the data entry on the CRM side is a huge problem. I spent 8 years at Salesforce prior to joining RevSure, and so many companies struggle with that. It's such a big problem. And if you do it right, I mean, you're looking at a rep can spend 20 to 30 minutes a day updating Salesforce. Like, imagine the productivity gain if you gave them that time back.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, I don't want to ask my reps, what is the likelihood of this deal to happen? Why can't we use for all the conversations to know, do we have the decision maker? Do we have budget? Do we have all the things that we need? And so that's why I keep pushing our team to keep building these functions and features to do so. And I think that's where we will start to evolve over time.
So I think
don't forget multi-threaded in this economy, Dustin.
Right. I think similar to what you're saying, data entry, but it's also like the salesperson also spends a lot of time sending out emails. So there's the BDR emails, but the salesperson, once they've actually had that conversation and they've identified the problem they're solving, there's a lot of rehashing of that happens in the next steps and so on. And there's definitely room for helping the salesperson do that, right? One of the things that we've been thinking about is there's not ever just one buyer on the other side. There's actually up to 8 stakeholders as on average on the other side that have to be convinced that this is the product to buy. And the salesperson is trying to sort of multi-thread that. And can you actually help them do that multi-threading in a voice that makes sense, right? So if you're talking to a CTO, then the voice needs to be different than if you're talking to a finance person, right? And there's definite room for a lot more help that you can give to the salesperson, right?
Yeah, so absolutely, Sarka. When you're thinking about, I'm having to sell to multiple different personas, what's important to these personas? Like, what do they care about? What moves the needle? Like, go use ChatGPT for that. Like, you can quickly get up to speed on multiple different personas. Like that's one great use case for ChatGPT.
Right. So one of the things we talked about in the prep session was, like I was saying, I think research is showing it really AI makes really strong salespeople better, or strong BDRs better, but it actually can make poorer BDRs or poorer salespeople worse, right? And so have you seen any of this? It's like your AI is as good as your prompt, right? Have you seen any
Yeah.
of this, and have have you experienced it? How are you guys thinking about this in your companies?
I say it firsthand because it's part of our tool, right? So at the end of the day, we actually are generating an email based off your conversation, but we're not at a point yet where you can solely rely on that email, right? You're going to have to start to modify it, and I think it's just like anything else. You can have a cadence, and you can let it go. And those reps are probably not top of the leaderboard, while others who are going to be modifying it and customizing it just a little bit more for that specific individual that they're outreaching to. It's going to play a big difference. And I think that you still have to modify. You can't just plug and play with AI functions and features. We're just not there yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with Dustin. I think if you don't put your own personal touch on it, it's going to be very generic. It's going to really highlight those BDRs, right, that are not authentic, not able to build a connection. But for example, if you go to ChatGPT and you say, hey, this CRO at XYZ company, like what are the top 3 concerns that they might have? Like you can get some ideas around how to write some pretty authentic content that's really going to resonate with that buyer, that might move the needle and get you that next meeting. So I think it's going to make the good sellers and the good BDRs better, pending you leverage the technology properly.
Right. So let's talk about the next topic of AI as an assistant versus AI actually taking over the person's job, right? This is basically is human AI collaboration, you know how is that going to work, right? Are we going to see this more as an assistant? I mean, Microsoft calls it Copilot. I think Google calls it assistant. What have you guys seen and experienced, and what's your expectations from this for your companies?
Yeah, I think it's for something that supercharge your team. If you're going to solely rely on AI, it's not going to do the job. I think that there's still some type of thought that's going to have to prompt some of the information that you enter into some type of AI tool. But I also want to say, like, don't just solely rely on tools that only use ChatGPT, because if everyone's doing it, then it's going to be the same email outreach. Because again, if you prompt it the same way, give me a great outbound outreach email, then everyone's going to be doing it. And then all leaders like myself, I keep getting the same exact type of email, and it's like, that's not impactful. So you're gonna have to really use it to supercharge in certain areas, whether it's just to start an email and then you modify it, and it's just going to help you be more effective and efficient. But you can't solely rely on it at the current stage.
What do you
Yeah,
think, Johnson? Yeah.
I would agree. So, I mean, there's tools like an AI-based personal assistant. You can use ChatGPT or other tools for, like, let's say, meeting prep, just like generating thoughts around a company, or it could be their specific challenges or their pain points or what they're going through. There's tools for proposal generation. Like all I'm seeing is tools that are going to help augment how you do your job, right, and make you more efficient. I haven't seen anything at this point in time that's going to replace a BDR or an AE, right? So I think it's really figuring out what tools work for you. Like go play around with different tools, go do proof of concepts. Because I think that the sophistication of these tools, it's all very, very different. And I know, like with our tool at RepSure, a lot of it depends on a customer's data, right? So go use it, go play around with it, see how it works for your org and your use case, and then you can make a good decision on, do I want to integrate this into my daily workflow or my daily tech stack?
I think
Right.
that's super important, right? I think something that I want to make sure that everyone's aware of is everyone's just slapping ChatGPT on a product and trying to sell it. So be very mindful of you doing your due diligence, your homework, because there's so many out there, it's so easy to kind of go, oh, it's an AI tool, and it's for sales, it's going to do X, Y, and Z. But don't forget, AI, it's about a learning model. So if they do not have a whole bunch of data that it's learning from, then it's not going to work appropriately. And so that's where you really have to understand, for those who are not as familiar with AI, understand like where's their data in training model coming from, right? How much data is being pushed into their AI model? And are they solely just using ChatGPT, or do they have their own proprietary AI software as well that you can do both, right? A company can have both and combine, or use or whatever they're using, but just make sure that they're just not solely using just one.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something for those who are looking at tools to kind of double check on.
So, Dustin, are you at Otter? Do you have your own proprietary model, and then are you combining now that with generative AI to come up with something unique and more powerful? Tell us more.
We are. So basically, we have our own model, and we've been using it. Again, I kind of mentioned this in my intro. Is we were very fortunate to have an early partnership with Zoom. So everything that was on Zoom was being transcribed by Otter. And so it basically helped our training model, having over 10 billion meetings that were transcribed. So for us, that's what catapulted us in our AI model. However, as we all are aware, AI just catapulted. And so we do need an additional help for certain aspects. So we have our own, but eventually we want to have it all our own. But we are having some supplemental, other AI companies helping us do the functions and features that we want to get to sooner, right?
Can you share an example maybe of a use case which would be sort of combined and becoming more powerful as a result?
Sure. So it's a combining, right? So if you want to be able to send appropriate like email, or an email summary. So we have our model, but we want to be able to have certain aspects from like another AI platform that we've seen do maybe a little bit of better job of doing certain aspects of that better than us. But then we learn, and we're learning like how to actually get to that level. And so for us, it is how can we actually use something today that is outside of our company, and then have our team learn and grow how to actually do it and get that higher level of accuracy, so we can wean off that. Because if you guys are reading in the news, ChatGPT, I mean, it's actually getting shut down in certain countries because you can't solely rely on that. And if you are buying a tool that has solely ChatGPT, just be mindful of where you're actually selling into, because they will not allow you to have like a ChatGPT or certain AI functions and features. So just be mindful of that when you're purchasing a tool.
That's a great point. So really ask the right questions to understand that it's ChatGPT plus there's something proprietary, something unique that this company is doing that's making it very powerful. Because otherwise you could just basically go to ChatGPT and use it as it is, right? Which is in itself powerful. Jonathan, do you have examples of this, of how you are thinking about your own model, which you actually talked about, as well as sort of combining that with some ChatGPT-like features, right?
Absolutely. So we are an AI company. We have data scientists on staff. Our founder, he has a 20-year background in, deep analytics, machine learning, AI. So we have a lot of really, really smart people at our company that have been doing this for a long time. I think when you look at our models, right, we have two different models. We have a heuristic model and an auto ML model. Basically, what we're doing is we're applying a multi-layer AI approach on a data set. Because if you think about data in a source system, right, sometimes source system data is not very clean. So that would be more like our macro model doing more of the work, versus like if the source system data is very clean, it's the micro model that's doing the work. We train and regression test all of our models, and our models are about 90% accurate, right? So that's kind of the core AI at this point in time. It's predictive in nature, right? How much pipeline are we going to generate as a company? What's the win rate of that pipeline, right? What do my next two quarters look like in terms of pipeline coverage based on propensity to book, right? We're taking things at a lead level and projecting that all the way out through a bookings level. to give companies this type of visibility. Where do we go next? Where do we go from here? So we're creating generative AI, an approach around generative AI to work with our predictive AI. So you can ask RevSure questions like, what are my top 5 leads based on, this particular industry or this rep or this BDR. And we're going to be rolling that out early this fall. So we've been doing some prototyping right now, and that's how we're going to combine the generative AI plus the predictive AI. So no longer do you have to, go through RevSure, and search around, right? You're just gonna talk to an interface or chat with an interface, and it's gonna serve up the questions, or you're gonna provide the questions, and it's gonna serve up the answers. So that's where we're going.
Love that idea of getting rid of point and click interfaces, which become very tedious, and somebody has to really almost predetermine what questions you want to ask and build those, versus letting the person sort of guide what they want to have, right? Like you can basically chat interface everything or speak interface everything, right? Dustin, are you thinking of those sort of like interfaces, or is your application more like a background application that just sort of runs and sort of connects things, right?
It's really funny that you say that, because we're just about to launch our chat. So basically we have preemptive things that we're going to automatically do for you. But then again, you can be able to actually communicate with our platform. So thinking about just the conversation that you just had, or if you've had multiple conversations with one particular customer, and you for sales reps, we forget everything because we're in back-to-back meetings, and statistics show that we actually forget 50% of the information within just 1 hour. So that's the reason why the sales reps, when you think about conversational intelligence, we've had to always go back and re-listen to calls because we forget everything to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to follow up? We don't need to do that any longer. Now you can actually literally just chat and ask it a question to say, what were the topics? What were the next steps? All that stuff. And now you actually get it firsthand for you. So it's going to save a lot of reps time. And I think that's what's going to be really powerful moving forward for any sales rep.
Right. To be able to query your own data. So, by the way, I want to just actually throw out a challenge here, right? So I think we talked about the sales assisted versus automated. I believe when we talk about today's where generative AI is, it probably is only better off for sales assisted because it hallucinates like crazy. So maybe an experiment that I did that I'd love to share with you guys is I took all our support documentation and fed it to ChatGPT and said to it, hey, now you're going to be the salesperson because now I just trained you, right? And I'm going to be your customer. So now let me ask you some questions, right? And it did amazing. It was great. It was even better than a salesperson, right? And until I asked it a question about integration with HelloSign. And we actually have an integration with DocuSign. We don't have it with HelloSign. There's nothing in the documentation about HelloSign, but it made up shit, right? It said, yes, of course you can do this. And I was like, oh my God, this is so not ready to be used, right? But it's a matter of time, right? You can actually tell it not to lie, or there's probably ways to kind of create these boundary conditions around that, right? So I feel like we're at the and we talked about that we're at the cusp of we're just starting off, and so it may be initially very good for assisted, but we should really keep our minds open to what are some things that it could do better, right? Yeah.
You gave me the loaded question of like how we're using our own data and other platforms, and it's because of what you just mentioned, right? So AI and the ChatGPT, it's going to be commoditized. There's other smaller companies that are out there actually doing a fantastic job of doing certain things. Because what we've noticed with like ChatGPT, for example, is what you just mentioned. Like you can put a prompt and it gives you false information. So you can't solely rely on it. So that's the reason why we look at different models to just say, okay, where are we at and what are these other platforms doing? And if we notice that they have done maybe a better job than what we have, then we use that, and then we start to like learn from that for our model to grow. And so I think that's just something for everyone to just be mindful of, because we actually did some tests because we actually thought it was, because we're always looking for a better way to be able to find contacts, right, for organizations or job titles. And so we used ChatGPT, and it just made up a whole bunch of titles and names for companies that we're looking for. So we're like, we can't use it that way. But that's the level that we're going to be able to go to. So I keep thinking, I'm like, okay, where and when can I find a tool
Uh-oh, did we lose Dustin?
I think so.
All right. Okay, we'll wait. Dustin, you're back. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It's part of working from home still.
Yeah.
You were saying where and when can I find a tool? I'll let you finish.
So yeah, when I was talking about, yeah, kind of if you're looking for it, I want to be able to find a tool where I can type in a company name and I get their phone numbers and their emails ready and available for me. So my reps are not going out there and trying to find it. You can literally just type in a company, you get all the information to do quicker outbound. Like, so I think that those types of things are going to come soon.
Yeah. No, totally agree. Maybe one more aspect of I think generative AI that we should talk about is just it's generative AI. So it leads to a lot of content getting generated, and so of course maybe people just pushing out emails, but also our training models just getting trained on AI generated content, right? So is AI going to become spam? How do we make it thoughtful? How are you thinking about this in your companies? What are some concrete thoughts around this?
Yeah. So you kind of talk about outreach. As soon as outreach and those types of tools came out, us as leaders, we got inundated because you can now send out 1,000 emails. Same thing with LinkedIn. I don't know about you all, but I'm getting more email messages than I've ever had before, and it's hard to keep up. And so, if you're really not standing out, or if you're not kind of like thinking differently of like your approaches, then you're going to be in the trenches because people like me, I'm starting to get to a point where like I'm just deleting automatically just because I can't get to them. And so there might be something good in there, but you have to figure out what your approach is. And that's what I'm trying to constantly work on with my team. How can we use AI, or how can we actually think differently? Because it is going to get a little bit more scary than we are today, just because you're going to get those, we talked about those reps that are going to use AI to say, send out 5 million emails to everybody and not actually put some thought behind it. So it's going to get a little bit more spammy, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I completely agree. Like,
I'm a little bit scared of this.
We all should be. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's where hopefully AI will start to solve for it for us. Kind of like your phone is now identifying when there's spam, and it's starting
Right.
to
Right.
do some things for you. So I think that there's probably going to be additional AI tools that will help us, but it's going to be a while.
Right. I think as listening to the CTO of Microsoft, where he was talking about that they're probably going to look at tagging content that's AI generated. So you always know when you're reading it, but also when you're considering it for running it through your models, that it is actually tagged as AI generated. So you can sort of like weight it in the right way versus, human generated versus AI. Of course, we'll see probably hopefully like more compliance, more regulation that comes around this to protect consumers and businesses too, right? So let's actually, we're coming to a little bit towards the end. Let's maybe ask the audience if you guys have any questions. Please put them in the chat in the Q&A. I see a question for Dustin. Does automated CRM integration from online meeting?
Yeah, we're actually working on that. So we're going to be starting off with Salesforce first, and then probably HubSpot and Pipedrive and those additional ones. So great question. Yeah, we're just getting started. We just got started in 2018, so we're growing quite quickly.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I'm sure this will be really popular because it'll help all those salespeople who are spending hours entering stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay. Well, if there's no questions right now, maybe we get to the last question for all of you guys, right? As we think about, going forward, the most important thing is, are there sort of, what's our practical approach to this? What's some best practices or takeaways that you can share with everybody of how they should maybe look for tools or think of how this will affect their day-to-day lives, because we are sort of entering a wave of sort of change. And so how are you thinking about this for yourself personally, right? What are some tools you're going to look at? What's your criteria? How do you think this will help you, right? So who do you want to maybe Jonathan, why don't you go first, right?
I think, Sarka, there might be a few more questions in the Q&A.
Oh, okay. Why don't I think I don't see them or something. There's something wrong with mine.
So it looks like the first one is, how does everyone use AI to analyze data?
Oh, okay.
And then we could go to the next one. I can read
Yep.
that one, read the afterwards. This is a great question. I think this is something that we're constantly thinking about as well, right? Conversations over time, that's data, but also we want to make meetings more effective as well, not just for sales, but just also internal meetings. So we know that every single time that you have a meeting, there's other parts that you need to bring in and having analyzed data. So, from Snowflake or certain aspects from like Tableau, we want to be able to like kind of bring that into the conversation to make meetings more effective and efficient. So if you kind of say like, hey, what is this X, Y, and Z data, conversion rate, what have you, it should pull in some of that data and analyze it for you. So I think that you're going to see a lot of these organizations that are solely about data, kind of like a Tableau, and I don't know what their game plan is, but I can see them kind of doing something with data or a Snowflake, and for sales, Salesforce, right? I mean, those are the things that we should be expecting that should come along, but also using AI to supplement, right, and bringing those things into the conversation to make conversations more effective.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In terms of, RevSure and looking at AI and analyzing data, like that's what we do at our core.
There you go.
So it's very important, right? And some of it comes back to like, do you have enough data, right? In terms of best practices around AI, like if you can do a trial, do a POC, right? Because you want to see how your data interacts with a company's specific models, right? Because if you're working truly with an AI company, like they've developed their own models. So go test your data on the models to get a feel for the accuracy of the projections, the predictions, etc. So that would be my piece of advice to the audience.
Yeah. No, thank you, Jonathan and Dustin. I see the questions now. The next question is, do you have a playbook or tactical step-by-step use case of using AI in sales? I think the first thing I would say is there is no playbook for AI in sales right now, and I think it's on all of us to actually learn from each other and really figure out what the step by step things that are shifting and changing that are out there. Dustin, I think in some ways the way I think about this is you should take all your best practices and throw them out of the window right now.
Yes.
Right?
Different. Think different.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's evolving, and so if you're not changing, just like any company, if you're not thinking about how to do more with less using AI, and if you're not doing those things, you're not thinking about it now. And that's why I say, look at all of the manual steps that your organization is taking. How do you actually reduce that? How can you be more effective and efficient? I mean, your leaders are probably in this, you guys are probably hearing it now from your executives. Like they're expecting you to find tools to do more with less. And so I think it's just taking what we know already and try to figure out how and what this world's going to look like using AI. I don't think we have the answers yet. I think we kind of are thinking about it, but no one has a tool. Nothing's really 100% ready, but you can try to bank on companies and where they're going and try to invest in them now.
Yep.
I would argue that the pace of evolution as it relates to AI and all the new solutions that hit the market every day, like almost make it impossible to stay on top of everything that's happening in the AI space.
And I think that's why sessions like this are helpful because we will learn from each other and adopt some of those practices. So next question is, what advice would you give a CEO on how best to go about incorporating AI into his or her overall company motions? How to leverage its strengths while balancing risks? It's a very good question. It's one that I am thinking a lot about. We switched on, for example, Copilot, GitHub Copilot for all our engineers. We encourage everybody to use ChatGPT, in fact, want to pay for it. So right now we're in the mode where we want everyone to adapt. We are not so much thinking about constricting it, but we are a smaller company. I do know for bigger companies, there's absolutely a lot of fear around data privacy and leaking of proprietary data. Dustin and Jonathan, how are you guys thinking about this?
Yeah, it's all about the training model at the end of the day. I would say there's two different sides of this. There's the security, and then there's the risk portion of this. The security is making sure that you're working with, and this is what I was talking about before, is that a reputable company? Are they putting things in place to secure your information? And then there's the risk side. Do they have the capability to turn off the training model? So like if you have a company that's out there that is kind of leaking your proprietary information, because if you're having internal conversations or what have you that you're putting in there. So if you look, for example, if you're having a rep who might not be familiar and they put your ARR in the system, like, is that going to get leaked? Is that going to be part of the training model? And you want to make sure that they can turn that on and off. So just something for you guys to kind of think about in two different aspects.
Right.
I'm not a CEO, but when I think about the question, I think security is probably top of mind. That's the one thing that's, probably the scariest about using these AI models and putting in information that may be, consumed and stored in other areas that could be tied back to your company. So that's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah, there's sort of two aspects. There's the security aspect, but there's also, you don't want your company to be left behind because you basically stop your people from using AI, because it can potentially transform your company, right? And so you just want to figure out how to balance the two. And that's actually a related question on that I see, which says, are you finding resistance from your sellers in using AI? Like, are they scared of it? Like, what are you guys seeing from your teams?
You got early adopters and then you got late adopters. And so you're always going to get those individuals. And it honestly, it depends on what they're familiar with. They're going to continue doing things that they're familiar with. But the earlier adopters, they're the ones that are going to find the tools for you, to be honest with you. From my experience from all the different companies, you're going to find reps that are out there trying to hustle and try to find tools that are going to make them more effective and efficient. And then they're going to bring it to you and say, this thing is saving my butt. And it's how I'm being more successful. And then those reps are going to kind of carry that to other reps, because all the other reps are like, oh, I want to use that now. So that's what has been my experience so far.
Yeah, totally. By the way, I just want to agree, because that's how RevSure came to us. It was our reps bringing in, and I want to call out to Reggie.ai. When our salesperson saw Reggie.ai, he was like, oh my God, we totally need this. So yes, you're absolutely seeing this happen, right? Jonathan?
I use Reggie AI. It's a great tool. So it helps, once again, automate sequences, kind of reduce manual work that a human has to do and free them up to sell more. So I think that's great. I think when you look at adoption, right, technology adoption is something that's very, very challenging. And some sellers just kind of gravitate towards it and they run with it, and they're very, very good when it comes to trying out new things and leveraging technology that's at their disposal. Others need a bit more, guidance and help. So I think you have to really figure out, like, who are my early adopters in the company, and kind of pick their brain and understand what they're doing and make sure they're sharing that with the other folks in the organization. So it doesn't feel so overwhelming for the folks that aren't as forward leaning with technology, right? And that kind of breaks down some of those barriers and then moves those, slower adopters, right, more to the middle piece of the adoption curve. So that's kind of how I think about it.
One thing that I would suggest, and I've done this and this works extremely well, and it gives complete ownership to the reps. So if you're not seeing reps actually adopt this, I would actually put them in groups and go find a tool. Understand like the inefficiencies that you're seeing today, and go find some tools. They feel a sense of ownership, and they're proud to find something that might work. So, and then you can have different groups within your organization that goes and finds these things, and they can present it to the rest of the team. And so I think that that's a great way for your reps to start to immerse themselves in different tools and in AI.
I love that idea, because just like there's going to be a sense of overwhelm of all the tools, so many tools, all of them sounding exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And so how do you get everyone to understand what can benefit? So this has been a great conversation. I think we're coming to an end of it. There are some more questions If you guys have questions, you will get Dustin, Jonathan, my emails. You can email us directly, and we'll be very happy to share more details. But let's wrap it up for now, and let's actually end with one best practice, one takeaway that you'd like to share with the team. So, Dustin, do you want to go first?
Uh, my takeaway and best practice, is that what you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever you want to. Yeah.
Oh, put me first. Now I got to think about it. There's so many good things. At the end of the day, I just think just being mindful of like the tools that you're looking for. I think that there's just so many things that are out there, and just being careful, because you can spend money on tools that are just not working. So one of the things that I would look at is how many people are in the company, but not just that, but how many like engineers or how many folks are actually on their AI team, and kind of like their plan forward. Because everyone is in the early stage. There's probably some really good small companies that are out there. It's just you got to be careful that you're not throwing away money, and then like the risk side. So I think that like that to me is one of the biggest things. And um, you know, well, I think, yeah, I'll leave it there for the time's sake. I'll turn it over to
So
John.
that's great advice, Dustin. Like, look under the cover of the companies that you are considering. That's what you're saying. Jonathan, what's your advice? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar to Dustin's. Are these real AI companies, or are they trying to fake it right now and ride this wave around AI? So I think that's one. I think for all the folks out there that are worried about AI taking their job, like, it's not going to take your job away if you're a BDR, if you're an AE, right? You have to figure out ways to use it to accelerate your productivity. And that requires experimentation, right? And sometimes these experiments take time. I played around with about 10 different AI tools earlier this year. Some of them were really, really interesting. Some of them were terrible. Some of them just needed a little bit more time, right? So sign up for the proof of concept, sign up for the trials, put in the time, and figure out what works for you and what's going to add a lot of value. Because just because it's an AI tool doesn't mean it's going to solve your problem. So come in with a use case based approach to evaluating these solutions.
I totally agree. I think we're in an unprecedented time right now. And those who actually figure out how to use these tools that are out there effectively to get their jobs to be done are actually going to get an edge, and it's going to be an exceptional edge. So this is a time to be very curious and to actually open our minds to try new things. To actually go check out Order.ai, go check out RevSure.ai, and all the other sort of companies. I saw Reggie, I saw others who are on over here. But check out, ask them questions, get free trials, and see if it really solves your problem. Because there is really an opportunity, just like what happened when cloud came on or when mobile came on. The early adopters are actually going to get the worm. So let's all learn from each other. Thank you so much, Dustin and Jonathan, for taking the time to do this panel with us, and I hope it was useful for everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us. Great time.
Everyone for attending, and thank you, panelists, for your wisdom and insights. And agreed, thank you, everyone, for attending and being curious and learning more about the unknown AI and how it's transformative in sales. Just a quick reminder that the recording will be made available along with the key takeaways and best practices on the MSP website before the end of the day, and we will send that to you via email. So thank you again for attending, and we will see you at the next event. Bye, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care.